Welcome to the Net Profit Podcast with Ryan Kibler, your net profit CFO, helping business owners like you grow their net profit one episode at a time. And now your host, Ryan Kibler.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Net Profit Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Kibler, the Net Profit CFO. Today, I have a very special guest with me. I have Ron Latz with me. Ron has a decade and a half of experience working with law firms, especially in the marketing, sales, software space. I am really excited to have Ron on the show today because we're going to be diving into the fun topic, the marketing and sales machine. So, Ron, thank you for taking the time and coming on the show.
I appreciate it, Ryan. Based off our previous conversations, I'm sure this will be a fun one. Any direction you want to take it, game, but I'll let you get us started here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to give you an opportunity. Share a little bit with my audience. How you got to where you are today, right? Obviously I shared, a little over 15 years of experience working with law firms in the marketing and sales space, but really kind of take it from there and tell us a little bit more about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I fell into it, right? I started 2010 working for Reuters within their legal division, a company called FindLaw, which is now sold and owned by internet brands. But I was selling marketing and advertising specifically to lawyers throughout the northern third of New Jersey. I really fell in love with just helping individuals that are set up to help other people that are in some of their most, worst situations that they're encountering within their lives, right? Most individuals are navigating life, really avoiding the use of lawyers outside of purchasing a home or maybe doing some planning. But
Sure.
Other than that, I really relished within the challenge of helping connect individuals that might have no idea that these lawyers even existed, right?
Yeah.
Or they even wanted to work with them, connecting each of those two groups. Because as much of a bad rap as whether sales or lawyers or other people might get within their profession, right? When you need the service of a law firm, right, they really are the ones that can help see you the light at the end of the tunnel through some of those bad situations. So that's how I got into it. I stayed connected to it from clients that would reach out to me even a handful of years after leaving Reuters, asking me what they should do, how they should market themselves, if they should renew this contract or that, build a new website, try ads, whatever it may be. I had started 7 or 8 years ago when I initially incorporated the business that is now LegalFenix, doing some consulting work. In between that, I helped rebuild a smaller boutique legal marketing agency where I was responsible for the customer success, digital strategist, and then the sales and marketing function of that agency. And in the process of building that, thought it would just be best for me to go back out on my own and build the thing that I was really passionate about, which was LegalFenix. And we are a legal marketing consultancy that offers fractional CMO services exclusively to lawyers and law firms.
Love it. Yeah. So, before you and I kind of started recording here, we had a little bit of a conversation, and, I think for all business owners, not just law firm owners, right? Even when you start your business, right? Even if you're 10 days in, I think you should always be thinking, what is my exit plan? What is the end goal? What is the end day look like, right? That might be retirement. That might be, getting bought out by other partners, whatever that looks like, right? And you and I were talking about, really for a law firm, I think, one of the biggest value drivers is what does your marketing and sales machine look like, right? That I think combined with your reputation and client feedback is those two things is probably some of the biggest value adds for buying a law firm or buying into a law firm if you're trying to get partners. And so, like Ron, today I would love to just dive into, the good and the bad, the firms that have a really, really good marketing and sales machine. What does that look like? What pieces do they have? What are the bare minimums? And if for my audience that's out there listening, maybe you don't have the best marketing and sales machine, maybe that's an area of your business that needs improved that you need some help with. Obviously Ron is the guy to go to, but what are some things that they can add and some tweaks that they can make and improvements that they can make to make it better? I think that's probably the best way to dive into this thing and get started.
I think one of the biggest missteps, Ryan, is that your marketing goals and objectives aren't tied back directly to the business or to revenue, right? Many firms jump into specific channels and don't have a pointed strategy. They are not targeting ideal client profiles. They are not necessarily going after the right audience at the right time in the right channel. They want to boil the ocean, try this or that, all the new hot social media, all the new shiny technology, right? But at the end of the day, you need to ensure that you've got an investment in the right channels that's producing the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. And a lot of times, if you've got those business goals or objectives, you need to make sure that they're at least quantifiable, right? People say that you should have SMART goals, but it can't just be, I want revenue growth. I want to have more clients. I want more car accident cases. You've got to really put a number down to it. And if you know, right, the economics, if you know what you've been historically paying per lead or per consult or per client in terms of acquisition costs, now you've got a target that you can bring to a marketing partner, to an agency or a vendor, and let them know that based off of these economics, these are the amount of clients, or these are the amount of calls, or these are the amount of leads and consults that we need to produce in order for us to reach or exceed our growth expectations, right? So the first thing, tie those goals back to the business goals and make sure that you've got a strategy in place so that the tactics that you're going to deploy are all intended to row in the same direction that you're trying to go in.
Yeah. So it's almost like, you've really got to get in, look at a little bit of your data and kind of backtrack. So, like, just as an example, let's just say we're working with a business lawyer, right? You and I are both business owners. And let's say, one of their main services is setting up new businesses with their LLC, right? And I don't know what they would charge for that, but let's just round easy numbers like $1,000, right? So let's just say this law firm owner that does business law like has a goal of, again, just round easy numbers, adding $100,000 in revenue, right, of those types of cases to their firm. They've really got to get in and say, okay, well, if I want to add $100,000 in revenue and I'm charging $1,000 for the service, that means I need 100 new clients this year. In order to get 100 new clients, like, I know if I have 4 consults, maybe I close 3 or something like that, right? So 75% conversion rate. And then from my 75% conversion rate, I can come down to, okay, in order to, close 100 new clients, I've got to have 125 consults, right? That kind of math, that kind of backtracking timeline is kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, your example, if you've got to get 100 new firms, not 100 new cases within the year, you're talking about 8 new cases a month, right? What are you doing today? What is the incremental? How many qualified leads are you generating each and every month? And then you rattled off like the conversion rate. Now, we know that a large percentage of our top of funnel or MQLs, right, the marketing qualified leads, are going to be the least qualified of all leads. And then
Yep.
once they get through specific thresholds or, processes, whether it's intake qualified or an attorney then qualifies the lead, there's going to be an even smaller percentage of those individuals that flow through. But as long as you have a basic understanding and on average how much you are spending within each channel, what those channels are producing, and if you are converting at the rate in which you need to get those 8+ cases per month, you're in a much better position than the majority of firms that are out there that are just kind of throwing it on the wall and seeing what sticks.
Sure.
Right? There's certain tools that you can use to kind of track all of that stuff, but like you just did it on the fly, right? Like even if you've got an Excel workbook, you don't need a fancy CRM with, a very sophisticated or complex attribution model. As long as you understand how many times the phone's ringing, how many forms you're collecting, how many times you speak to those individuals, what percentage of those individuals are qualified, and then you're ultimately converting, you've got a much better chance of hitting the target than if you were flying blind, obviously.
Yeah. So, like, in an ideal world, and like you just mentioned, I mean, maybe you're using a software to do this, maybe you're not, but in an ideal world, you would have data for each channel, like on a monthly basis. How many leads are we getting? How many new cases are those leads producing? And how much money is that worth to the firm? Getting that pretty good?
Yes, in the ideal world, we've got the full tech stack built out where we know
Sure.
from call to matter to close to payment, we've got the entire life cycle tied up in a nice, neat bow. At minimum, if you can have some sort of call tracking software added to your site so you can understand where some of these individuals are being captured, which channels, and then
Yep.
pushing that data into whether it's a workbook, worksheet, or a CRM to see which ones of those leads then converted and were retained. I think that would be most helpful.
Yeah. And I think in some areas, right, like it's kind of hard to get down to like what's a true conversion rate, because somebody that wants to form that business, right, if they're working a W-2, I mean, it might take them 6 months, right? And so, and then they might convert. So that does add to your conversion rate, but they were a lead a long time ago, right? And so there's like lagging metrics there versus like maybe a lawyer that's doing divorce law, like they're going to make a decision pretty quickly, probably, right? And you could get 2 or 3 weeks into the next month and know like, okay, either these leads converted or they didn't, right? Is that pretty fair to say?
In some cases, I would say like very similar to employment, divorce is also research driven. You
Yeah.
might not necessarily wake up one day and say, I want to serve my spouse papers, but you might do some research, like what's going to happen to my children? What's going to happen to my home? If I don't have a job, will I get alimony? Or are they going to still pay child care? Sorry, child support, right? Like
Yep.
there's all these questions that you might have. Same thing with employment, very research driven, right? Your boss may very well be a jerk, but it doesn't necessarily mean, right? Seriously,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
something illegal happened or that there was discrimination there. So
Sure.
those types of consumers do tend to have somewhat of a longer sales cycle, if you will, because
Yep.
the front end above the funnel is very research and informationally driven,
Yeah.
right? Now, a CRM will help you understand the journey. How many different pages on the website did they maybe consume? What resources or assets did they consume? How many times did they return back, or did they call you multiple times? Right? That's, tracking that in a CRM is going to be much better than you trying to add all that information into free text fields on an Excel doc. Right? You're
Yeah.
not going to be able to necessarily see all of those touch points as easily as you would in a software that is designed to do so. But even
Got
taking
it.
this back to your previous question, like if you can get the high level overview, just total calls, total qualified leads and consults, total retained, and get the 30,000-foot view of what you are paying on average for leads as well as to acquire cases, that's a great start, right? At
Yep.
least you've got the basics down where you can understand dollars in and dollars out. Might be a little bit harder to nail that down in personal injury or contingency-based practices because the signups, the cases that you are bringing in today typically aren't going to produce revenue until 6, 9, 12 plus months down the road.
Yep.
So that's going to be a different challenge that subset of practices is going to face. But otherwise, if it is slightly more transactional, maybe if we're in criminal, right? DUIs, traffic violations, or some sort of low-level misdemeanors, maybe wills and estates where someone needs a will or a trust, things of that nature, where you have some sort of advertising, whether it's organic, local, paid search. Someone does consume the information that you're sharing. They submit a form or they call you. And now you can start tracking that prospect and the potential opportunity that is created from it and look at the velocity, basically. How fast did that individual kind of come through your sales and marketing machine and then
Yep.
those dollars for you. And then hopefully they're an advocate for you, right? They're loyal. You had a great experience. The service was top notch, and they tell all their friends, family, and colleagues about you, right?
Sure.
But there are some firms that don't have that infrastructure that is set up that way. It doesn't mean that you still can't track it.
Yeah. So I want to backtrack for a minute because I think you and I have been going back and forth here for a few minutes. So like really kind of level one, right? We're kind of talking about ideal marketing and sales machine, that if you don't have in your law firm, you should probably trend towards, right? You're not going to get there overnight probably, but you should trend towards, getting a hold of this data, really tracking it, using it, and, improving, making changes and improving your machine, right?
Mhm.
So level one is really like a revenue target and really direction, right? And making sure like I know what I want to do. I know how many cases that means I have to sign in order to sign that much revenue, right? So that's kind of like level one that if you're listening and you're not there, sit down and that should take you like 10 minutes, right? To really go through and like, this is how much revenue, this is how many cases that means I have to sign. This is my conversion rate, which means this is how many consultations I've got to have, right? That's kind of level one. Level two would really be like your marketing channel tracking, right? Which is you know, from each channel, here's how much we're spending, here's how many leads are coming out, here's, how many consultations are coming from those leads from that channel, right? And getting down to like what's really our cost per consultation from each marketing channel that you're using. Is that fair
Sure.
to say?
Well, I would even say the step before that is get it blended. If it's too overwhelming to try to do it channel by channel,
Yeah.
just make sure that you've got a holistic view of everything that is coming in, right? Because
Yeah.
again, workbook isn't necessarily going to be best suited for you to start tracking
Sure.
individual channel by channel data. You could, but I think that it would become unwieldy. And then your workbook, especially if you've got free text fields, data hygiene becomes a very serious issue. And if you're reporting on bad data, you're essentially not doing any reporting at all because it's not
Yeah.
really help you do what you needed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. So stage 2 is really like getting a hold on what are we spending? How many leads is that generating? How many consults are we getting?
And then you break it down, right? If you could take it to the next level, right? I think that's where we're starting to introduce some more tools and some more internal systems, right?
And getting into a CRM.
Yes, right? Like it doesn't break the bank. Throw up and I'll get like two plugs here, CallRail or what converts or call tracking metrics, right? For anywhere between 50 to 150 bucks a month, you can get a tool in which it will provide you with a script that you add to your website, and it will put a dynamically swapping phone number onto it, which collects some source data, your source attribution data, so you know where these leads were essentially captured, right? And the reason why I say captured and not generated is because it's hard to generate demand for a legal service, right? Like to generate demand for a divorce or for a car accident or someone that got into some criminal troubles, right? But we can put tools in place to understand, did we capture them from ads, from Google Local, our business profile? Was it organic? Was it somewhere else where we might have put some sort of tracking mechanism or a UTM parameter on so that we understand this came from this legal directory or this social profile? And then you could take all the data, right? Whether it's from analytics, Search Console, Facebook, right? Maybe you've got a legal directory that gives you some reporting and you can understand now total, this is how many leads we got. And out of those on each channel, these are how many that then scheduled. This is what converted. Here's what is retained and came out the bottom of the funnel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think from that, having that data, right? And once you've gotten to that point, I mean, that's really like level 3, level 4, right? That we're just talking about of like at the end of the month, you can go in, you can spit out a report of by marketing channel, here are the leads that came in, here's the additional pieces of information they might have consumed, plus, here's when they booked their consultation, plus here's when they signed on as a client, right? Like that would be ultimate level of kind of marketing and sales machine is you've kind of got them tracked through all the way through the process from the point where they first kind of made the phone call, if you will, to your firm to they've signed on and they're a brand new client, right? Would you say that that's like really the ultimate kind of top level ideal situation?
Yeah, the dream situation is you've got the entire client experience and their life cycle engaging with your firm from start to finish. So you've got your call tracking on the front end. You push that source data into an intake management software or a CRM. And then from there, once opportunities are created, if the tools allow you to, you push that into your matter management or case management software where you're now working the file. And eventually, right, you could potentially be sending invoices or closing it out once you go to verdict or settlement. And after that's all done, right, maybe now you're using something else like an SMS platform to send them a link to leave a review on your Google business profile. And you've now put them into your newsletter platform so that you can nurture them so that you stay top of mind. And then they can share your name with their friends and the rest of their network in the event that they go through something like you just went through. But that would be that's the ideal scenario where it's all connected. There's obviously a lot of implementation and integrations that go into setting this type of environment up, but I do think that it's well worth the effort.
Yep. And then they're on the birthday list too, of course, like
There
send
you
them a card
go.
every year, right?
There you go. You send them the card, you let them know it's happy holidays, but it's also it's deeper than that, right? If you've been taking copious notes and adding that to your CRM, right? You know where your clients' children go to college, you know what the name of their dog is, you know that they like, you know, the Yankees, the Devils, the Rangers, whatever it may be, you've got those notes, and whenever there's a game in town or um, their team wins, right? You can even get that personalization right on point.
Yep. Yep. So I want to now kind of go into, I think for a lot of listeners out there, probably some of the thoughts that are maybe running through their head are, holy cow, that sounds like a ton of work, right? Holy cow, that sounds like a major pain, right? And my answer would be, well, welcome to being a business owner. Step up, and these are the systems that you need, right? That would be kind of my hard answer, right? But like, let's really dive into some of the benefits, and I think you've kind of started to hit on them already, but some of the benefits and some of how your business really runs differently when you have these systems and integrations in place. Because I can think of a few, I'm sure you'll have a ton. So I want to let you kind of share on that, because I'm sure you've probably helped some clients kind of transform, maybe taking them from, I'll call like a level 0 where they didn't have any of this stuff really ready to go, to now it's fully integrated and their marketing and sales machine is really ready to go.
So where do you want to start? You want to start with someone that
I would say let's dive into some of the benefits that you're going to get when this is all done and this is really operational. Let's dive into the benefits that you get as the owner compared to not having any of these systems in place.
Yeah, I mean, in order to run your business, you want to know its health and whether or not the dollars that you are investing into marketing are producing a return, right? So just from an operational perspective and to ensure profitability of your practice, having some of these tools and systems in place are going to allow you to, make more data-backed decisions and pull levers from your marketing efforts to improve the performance of those efforts. You know, I personally don't know how businesses even operate without a CRM in place. Like that is one of my business's central sources of truth. I do other things out of my CRM, but to know like where I last left off with meetings with clients, what the action items are, like any tasks that are due, any opportunities that I'm pursuing, the newsletter, the touch points, how frequently am I interacting with these individuals, right? Like the reminders that I set up, all of my sales and marketing reports, they all live within my CRM. And I've got other tools that, pump data into it, and some of it pumps out from it. But a CRM, as far as like managing all the relationships, not only with clients, but for lawyers, right, with other service professionals, right? Maybe you are a personal injury firm and you've got a ton of non-personal injury firm referral sources that you might want to track into one of these tools. Well, now you know who's sending you business, who's sending you the best cases, which one sent you the most revenue, so that A, you not only reciprocate, but B, you could be thankful and grateful for those types of relationships. I think there's so many other things that come into play outside of just being able to see your report to know if your marketing is working.
Yeah.
These tools also will shed light into like your internal feedback loops, right? Like many times I'll walk into a firm and they will insist that they have a lead problem, but most of the times it's really like a system or process issue, right? I'll jump into these call tracking softwares and I'll uncover that 10 to 20% of phone calls are missed, right? But the firm actually does have an overflow or after hours or weekend coverage. So like, what's going on here? Right? Like, is it the answering service? Is there a gap in coverage during the day because John or Mary takes the lunch break and now it's being routed to voicemail and no one's picking up the voicemail and calling those people back? I've had situations where like the firm's VoIP system went down, right? We instead of just immediately assuming this is a lead problem, we checked call tracking. That seemed to be working. We started testing numbers. Wait a minute, numbers are failing, going to busy signal. What's going on? Now we go to our VoIP provider, and then we understand what's actually happening. So like when you've got some of these tools in place, you've got triggers set up so that you can investigate efficiently and uncover what the problem is so that you can find a solution.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, having these systems in place versus not having these in place, to me, opens the door for data-driven decisions. Number one. And number two, like as you were just mentioning, like how do you know if the system's failing if you're not tracking it, right? Like how would that firm have ever found out like, hey, the phone numbers that are being provided are not really going to us, right? Like it would be impossible to know if you didn't have these systems and you weren't implementing this, if you weren't tracking this. And like I completely agree with you, CRMs, you've got to have them, right? And um there's so much data and everything that can be held inside of a CRM. And it's not just, and this is really outside of, if you're a lawyer, this is outside of your case management software, right? Like I love your example of strategic partners and referral partners that you might have, keeping track of those, keeping them on your newsletter so that they're top of mind. And being able to know like which ones sent you the most business, as you mentioned, so you can, reciprocate. I mean, so many amazing opportunities and doors open up when you have these kind of systems and this kind of data versus firms that don't. And I think both you and I have worked with both sides of the coin, right? And it's much easier for me being the financial guy, like and being all about numbers and data driven decisions, so much easier working with the side of the coin that definitely has these systems.
I didn't even touch on this earlier, but like one of the even bigger benefits of knowing where your calls are coming from. But these call tracking tools now have what's known as conversational intelligence, which is just a fancy word for saying they're recording the phone call and pumping out a transcript that is then searchable. But when you've got those call recordings or you've got those transcripts, there isn't a better coaching and training tool for your intake team or your sales team at your firm to uncover opportunities for improvement or to highlight the incredible work that someone is doing when they answer the phone and they're super empathetic and they act like a human and they basically let the individual know, hey, sorry that you're going through that, but this is the right choice. You came to the right firm. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, right? It's going to sound like a lot, but then afterwards, I will then know the best attorney at our firm to schedule you a consultation with. Right? Like when you have shining examples, you could share that with the rest of the team so you can accelerate their time to value, right? So that they can get the leg up. You're spending all these dollars on marketing. You want to make sure that you're not dropping the ball at the 1 yard line. So like the training opportunities, uncovering again gaps. Maybe you're outsourcing to a third party. They could be mispronouncing your name, telling them that they offer a free consult when you don't, or that you practice a specific area law that's nowhere on your website. Like you take that recording, you show your call answering service, and now you've got a legitimate claim to say, like, we need your team to understand what it is that we do, where we do it, and the way that we interact with our clients. It might also help you in a situation where you need some credit for some service that you're supposed to be paying for that you're not really getting as well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and not to mention like with new employees and new hires, right? Recorded phone calls, the opportunity to go back and review those, really train them up. And being able to go back and look at recorded phone calls, especially if you have the conversion data, you can look at, okay, which one of our callers is converting at a higher rate, especially if you've got one in the group that's really really low, like maybe he's in the 20s or 30s. You can go back, listen to those calls, figure out like, okay, what is it in their phone calls that has them converting at such a low rate, right? Especially if there's a big gap between them and everybody else on the team, right?
Double down on that with the lawyers. So after the intake converts it and it gets to an intake qualified lead, now the lawyer is going to take a look at it. Which individual lawyer on that team closes the most qualified opportunities?
Yeah.
That could be a case in many practices where that individual does become, more of the closer. If someone has like a 35-40% close rate and there's someone else on the team that's only closing 10 to 15%, well, we should give the first individual either more opportunities or set up a conversation or a meeting with that second individual and the rest of the team so that they can share what it is that they're doing that's making them so successful.
For sure. For sure. And then I think about, from a competition, from a marketing spin standpoint, right? If you got in and found that kind of a thing out, right, where one lawyer's converting at 30-40% and another one's 10 to 15, right, the return that you're getting back on your marketing dollars, especially with some, like I said, some spaces being really, really competitive, having somebody that can close at that higher rate, I mean, just does amazing things for your law firm. Much higher profits, right? Much greater return on marketing. And then as we kind of kicked off this conversation and started at the beginning, like having those systems down and knowing those numbers and having those systems in place that are almost running on autopilot, drives the value of your law firm. If you're going to exit, sell, bring on other partners, et cetera, I mean, just way different versus a firm that has no marketing and sales data.
Yeah, you're flying blind in those situations, and no one likes the feeling of just wasting hard-earned dollars without knowing like what's happening.
For sure. Well, Ron, I want to thank you for being a guest today. I love this conversation. I hope my audience did as well. I think, you and I laid out a lot of things that good law firms should be doing in their marketing and sales engine, if you will. I want to give you an opportunity, if there are law firms out there that don't have that marketing and sales engine right and really dialed in, where is the best place for them to connect with you, find you, work with you at LegalFenix?
The best place would be to check out the website, LegalFenix, FENIX.com. There's a wealth of resources there. I'd encourage you to sign up for the newsletter. I also share content on LinkedIn almost every single day. So you can find me in LegalFenix on LinkedIn. And I'm unsure when this will air, but I have a webinar series on the 20th at 1:30 Eastern. I will have Steve Fretzen from Be That Lawyer and Elise Holtzman from The Lawyer's Edge joining me, where we're going to peel back the curtain and teach a lawyer's referral masterclass. So if you can't necessarily invest what you need to invest in some of these channels and want to drive some more referrals, you could check us out there. And the website and LinkedIn all have the registration details.
Awesome. Thank you again, Ron, for coming on the show. I appreciate your time, and we'll have to have you back for part 2. So
sounds good, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, until next time, everybody, go accelerate your profits. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Net Profit Podcast with Ryan Kimler. Make sure to subscribe or follow the show on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget to check the show notes for our guest contact information and to connect with Ryan on his website, netprofitcfo.com.